Nice. Right, Dave. It's going to be weird though because we're on the other side. But
yeah. So, hey guys, Andy here. Welcome to another Tuesday Tune In, and with me, Dave.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Andy. How you doing? I should say, Dave. No, it's weird actually being from the other way because I can't see any of the chat. But yeah, if you have joined us, do drop a message in. Dave, you'd probably be able to see more than me.
Yeah.
It's
So,
a bit weird this week.
yeah, exactly. So we're a little bit different. We'll explain why in a moment. We are live. If you are here on the chat, drop us a thumbs up, drop us a like, drop us a comment, say hello. Yes, it's all weird. I'm trying to remember what Andy normally says. Marky V, Bride, Jane, Tina, hello. How's it going? How are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey, oh, Sinead is here. Oh, point for me. Chris Ward, Jim Sital, Evertrex here, mate. Oh, nice. I'm assuming that's Lozatron on the phones.
I'm assuming that's probably Lauren on the comments. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you're not here, are you? You're not over there.
Yeah. So, yeah, just a little bit of background. So I'm abroad at the moment, over in Spain with some family. So this is actually weird because the first live we've done abroad, which is weird. But I didn't want to miss today because I know how much you like this guy. So I wanted to obviously come and join Dave and answer as many questions as you can because we've had a lot over the last couple of weeks with the release of quite a lot of new trips. And I know if you've been around the Evertrek community a while, you know that, obviously we started with Everest Base Camp, then we've kind of journeyed a little bit, and obviously we did Kili, and now we've introduced all these other trips as well that, which is great to do, but we had heaps of questions around them. And also as well, we've, the last couple of weeks, because of the Kilimanjaro competition, we've had a lot of people who've had some questions about Kilimanjaro. So we thought we'd cover all bases for that today. Anything around the new adventures, new trips. So if you've got anything around that, guys, do drop them in because, we want to, obviously, answer those questions, make sure you know exactly what sort of trip they are, maybe what sort of experience you need for them, because some of them are more challenging than others. They're not easy. But we got questions like, is K2 base camp okay for my first time at altitude? What about the Ring of Fire trek? How difficult actually is that? So, yeah, Dave, when we thought about today's live, wasn't it? We were thinking, okay, let's go into maybe a little bit more depth around those, right?
Yeah, exactly. First of all, yeah, it's freaking everyone out that we've swapped sides. Ramona, yeah, I know the feeling, like me and Andy, like the chi is all off. Like I look at Andy, not the camera. So I'm never like this. It's a bit intense.
I think that's a compliment, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but you're on the other side now, so it all feels very weird. But yeah, no, it's obviously we're in the business of making trips and making adventures, and so anytime we launch some more, it's always going to be an exciting time. And last week we had like K2 Base Camp, Mount Elbrus, Aconcagua, Patagonia Ice Fields, the volcanoes. It was really just that we didn't really get a chance to sort of do a deep dive, although that's a lot of trips, so we may need some. They could probably hold a live all on their own, these trips, but we wanted to talk a little bit more about them. Me and Andy were talking yesterday and say, well, a lot of people might not know the difference between K2 Base Camp and Everest Base Camp. They sound the same. Everest is bigger. Does that mean it's harder? How do you get there, and what's the differences? And then also the volcanoes in Ecuador, you look at that trip, it's 11 days, you might think to yourself, oh, that's pretty okay, but actually it's a bit of a dark horse, that trip. So yeah, it's a work. Nice. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly, because it's been great actually. I mean, K2's gone down a real treat, and Elbrus, I think, because over the last, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years, K2 has certainly got a lot more coverage, hasn't it, Dave? Certainly with obviously winter ascent of K2, which was amazing by the Nepalese team.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know we're talking about K2 base camp, so it's a completely different ball game to obviously climbing K2. But I think because of that, all that coverage around it and that popularity, and also as well the infrastructure in Pakistan has improved. Then obviously journeying to somewhere like K2 base camp and Concordia and that area there, as well as kind of Broad Peak, that essentially the same valley. It's certainly been very popular. We've hooked up with a really good team out there that have been doing this for some time. So we've kind of Evertrek-ified them, if you like. But yeah, that we've had a lot of questions around that, Dave, haven't we? I don't know if it's worth starting with that one today.
Yeah, why not? We'll start with K2 because it is the second biggest trip that we do. Yeah. It's only 200 meters less popular. But yeah,
Karen's asked, though, where's my hair gone? Yeah, I had an argument with a lawnmower, sadly lost. So yeah, my hair's actually fallen off. So this is probably the shortest I've had it for a while. But yeah, it's still me. It's still me.
Yeah,
It's all me.
should say to everyone that you cut your own hair, right?
I do.
And that's not
Yeah,
a joke. He does cut his own hair.
yeah.
Um,
I have done since God knows how many years. But yeah, it's I do have other people cut my hair, but it's the kind of style that it's not really a style because it's so messy and curly
yeah,
that I can get away with cutting it myself. So
yeah.
yeah, why not? Save some money for some future
Sometimes you
trips, right?
go. Sometimes you go to a building that cuts hair, don't you? And other times you do it yourself. So
A building that cuts hair. Yeah.
yeah,
I certainly do, Dave.
yeah, K2 base camp. So yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome trip. I mean, the obvious thing to do in your mind's eye is sort of compare it to Everest base camp,
Yeah.
because you go into the base camp of a 14,000-meter mountain. Actually, with K2 base camp you go to 2, and actually Everest base camp you go to 2 base camps as well, because Everest base camp is also Lhotse base camp.
Yeah, I'm not see.
And Lhotse, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So you go to quite a lot of
B3.
yeah. So yeah, but K2 is a slightly different flavor, if we're honest.
Yeah.
It is, so Everest being so popular, the trail is well established.
Yeah.
It's still an adventure. You're still going to extreme altitude, and it's still very, very remote. No roads, no cars, no machines, no television, none of that stuff. But it is a well trodden path, where K2, although the way to K2 is pretty well known, the actual terrain is still very rugged, very raw. It's not really been populated at all. So you fly into Pakistan, Islamabad, and spend a day knocking around Islamabad, and then you'll take a flight or a drive to Skardu. And Skardu is a big, like, me and Andy were both quite surprised actually with how beautiful and green and lush Skardu is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very surprising. Yeah, it's quite.
Yeah.
Excuse me, because it's you kind of in the back of my mind, because of the type of trip the K2 is, you don't really sort of envisage green and lush lakes and that kind of thing. I thought it was a bit more rustic. It's actually quite nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Disneyland or anything, but it's yeah, certainly very nice. So yeah, it's quite a nice stop on the way to what is, I think, what Dave was going into there, probably more remote than, say, the Everest area.
Yeah.
And even though the Everest area is very remote, when you go in on the Baltoro Glacier and then up to Concordia, which is essentially where K2 base camp is, we don't stop at Concordia. We go further, actually, to Everest base camp, to K2 base camp. Sorry, Everest on the mind, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it looms big, but yeah, like you were saying, so a lot of treks do stop at Concordia, right, which is the meeting of the Godwin, Austin, and Baltoro glaciers in this big cascade of ice and towers in the Karakoram. The Karakoram, by the way, is the section of the Himalayas that runs through Pakistan where K2 is located.
Yeah.
But we go on past Concordia to Broad Peak Base Camp. And then from Broad Peak Base Camp to stand at the foot of K2. Now, if any of you guys have like Googled K2 and had a look at it, it is awesome. It's the mountain you drew as a kid. It is that.
It's very pyramid, like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's awesome, but like it's hard to really narrow down where the adventure because it's that whole journey in. There's no villages from Skardu to base camp back to Skardu. There's no villages. There's no populations. It's camping. You're going to be fording streams with your rucksack above your head.
Yeah.
You're going to be walking on the actual glacier. So those of you that have done Everest base camp will have a flavor of what that's like. This is going to be a whole different kettle of fish, because you're going to be on that glacier or just skirting the edge of it for like 4 or 5 days, there and back. So.
Sorry, I'm just seeing some of the comments come through. I love. I think Stuart says, "How's your Ring of Fire today?" Yeah, Dave, I'm not sure how to answer that one. Yeah, I think if you've had a curry, I think those volcanoes are certainly going to be hotter than normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's brilliant. And yeah, big shout out to Mick, great ever trekker. It's his birthday today. Mick, I'm not going to say how old you are because I don't know.
He's 400. He's 400 years old.
It's at least 400 years old. I think he's that wise. But I think, I think it's been almost 400 years since he first booked Island Peak, and he's still waiting to go. So yeah, we want Mick to go to Island Peak soon.
Yeah.
Because he's rescheduled a few times, haven't you, Mick? And yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a chance it's going to have eroded by the time he gets there. But
Let's hope not. No, I'm still there, mate.
I see Brooke is here as well. Brooke, oh, this is
Yes.
exciting. I remember on Killy, I was on Killy with Brooke, and on the way down, she goes, "I think that's it for me. No more high altitude adventures." And I think she's gonna do Elbrus. She's gonna do Aconcagua. I know all of this about Brooke, even though she doesn't admit it herself. She will do all of those mountains.
She's I think Brooke, we've had a pleasure of trekking with Brooke a couple of times, and especially on Killy. Yeah, the kind of classic loves a challenge, ever trekker, and yeah, Brooke, can't wait to trek with you again, mate. Yeah, on Elbrus or K2 base camp. Yeah, can't wait to share a trek with you.
Yeah, awesome.
Sorry, Dave. Yeah, I know I love these comments. Honestly, it's so funny coming through. But yeah, keep hydrated. Keep hydrated.
Yep. Obviously, filtered.
People at sheep shearing, Jesus. Yeah, so Dave, sorry, I got off a tangent there. So K2 base camp, clearly more challenging than Everest base camp. What do we think about kind of first time on altitude, maybe second time on altitude? How would you approach that?
I think it's it could be your first trip to altitude. Altitude wise, it's very similar in its range to Everest base camp. In fact, a little less severe actually than Everest base camp, because you don't have like Kalapatar up and down. You don't, Everest in Nepal, the nature of its topography is that it's up and down, up and down. So you naturally have these spikes, where K2 base camp is more of a gradual climb. So I would say it could be your first time at altitude. I think the reason why it would be tougher to go there for your first time at altitude than, say, EBC is just the nature of the trek in itself is more strenuous on the body. So, you're going to be walking on the glacier, which is naturally hard because it's rocky. It's, terrain is sort of exhausts you anyway. You know the difference if you go on a hike and it's a nice flat trail, or if you go on one of Andy's hikes and the next thing you know, you're fording streams, climbing over rocks, and it's all rocky. You'll feel the difference in your legs just after one day. So that's why it's difficult. And then you go to when you factor in the altitude, 5,000 plus meters, it's going to be a tough one. But yeah, I would say, I think probably most people will. It depends on where you're beginning. If you're beginning with a mind that like, I'm hardcore, I want to go for an adventure, you'll probably just book straight in. If you're the type that wanted an adventure, went to EBC, or maybe you did Tupgal, and now you think, yeah, that's it, I've really got a taste for it, K2 base camp is the logical next step, in my opinion. They're all logical. Kilimanjaro is also a logical next step as well.
Yeah, because we get that, don't we? Do I do Kili first? Do I do Everest base camp first? Maybe do I try a bit of altitude like Mount Tupgal? We get a lot of questions around that, and I think just reading the comments, it depends on how many kidneys you have left. Is probably from selling them. It's probably a decision on which trip to choose next. I think. I think Ramona's certainly run out of those now, if she's on it. So I'm just reading for the comments. It's so funny. But yeah, I know it's mad. All these adventures, isn't it? I think that's why we're trying to be a little bit more flexible, guys. I know lots of you already know this stuff because you've obviously been part of the journey for a while with us. But don't forget, we do have some dates up to the end of 2024.
Yeah.
You can obviously spread those payments monthly. I know a lot of you do that now. It's almost 3/4 of our customers now choose to pay monthly, which is great. So that can help a little bit, but obviously I understand, you only have a certain amount of annual leave, you only have a certain amount of cash to try and do these things. So we'll try and do it. We're trying to help as much as we can with regards to these things. But yeah, certainly we'll be trying to get some future dates. I know a lot of you have got trips booked in. So we've been looking at 2025 now, which is freaking crazy, really.
Insane.
Thinking we're almost at the end of 2021.
It's insane.
These last 2 years, man.
I'm still reeling after 2020. I still haven't had time to process 2020. To think about 2025 is insane. But I'm just interested to comment. Yeah, hey, Stuart, how's it going? Hope you're doing well, mate. He said, how about walking to Everest from Juri? To be honest, it's something we thought about, but you miss out on the Lukla flight, and I think the way we looked at it is the Lukla flight is an attraction all in itself, and there's loads of lush walking after that. So we thought, we'll stick to the Lukla flight. But no, you are great. And it is one thing. I think one day what I might do is do the EBC trip and walk back to Juri, and then do the overland drive.
I've not done it myself. I've known a lot of, when I first went out to Everest base camp, which was on my own before obviously Evertrek was a thing. I met a couple of people who'd walked from Jiri, and they did say it was definitely an adventure. I think it was about several days to actually get to the start of the Everest base camp trip. And I think it does come down to time sometimes. If you've got a lot of time and you maybe got a month, just over 3 weeks or something, and you can squeeze that in because it is an additional 7 days. It's good for acclimatization. That is a good thing because you're walking all the way up, from pretty much Kathmandu, which is 1,300 meters. Walking up a couple of 100 meters, then walking all the way up then to 2,800 meters, which is Lukla. So you imagine that takes you a week. So that's quite good from a acclimatization point of view. But I think the tried and tested way of flying to Lukla, doing the normal route that we do with the acclimatization days, kind of obviously fits the time and the challenge. But yeah, 100%, mate. I mean, looking at Jiri, it's certainly been something because that's how they used to do it. Before Lukla was there, before Sir Edmund Hillary built the airport, or helped build it with the locals there. That's what they used to do. Climb Everest. They used to walk in from Jiri. So yeah, certainly. Who knows with the future? I mean, at the moment we're going to stick to obviously doing all the routes that we do there at the moment anyway, which is quite a few of them. But yeah, Jiri is it's a good shout actually, isn't it? Just to chat about that because Dave, we haven't chatted about Jiri for a while, have we? I think we've been off the radar because of all the other ones that we've been trying to push out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always interesting because I always want to experience more of the countries we're in. We were talking about one aspect of the K2 trip is that flight to Skadu. But obviously, like all flights, it's subject to weather and particularly internal flights, more subject to localized weather problems. So there is a potential that you'll drive for a whole day through Pakistan to Islamabad via Abbottabad, which is famous for other reasons. And then, but I was talking to Andy and I was saying, do you know what? I'd love to do that drive. Sorry, Andy, is that an elephant? I think here.
There's someone walking through the door, but it's okay.
Yeah. So, talking about that drive back, and it's one of the things that I really love about traveling. Is going a little bit off the beaten path. When me and Andy went to Pokhara, we flew to Pokhara and then drove back, and
it was nice, Dave, wasn't it? Because you see stuff you probably would never see.
It was bumpy.
It was very bumpy.
I remember when we stopped for a coffee and I had to throw mine away because Andy's a seasoned coffee handler where I was getting coffee all over me. I was like, Jesus, I couldn't even drink it.
Bring your hands, mate. You're gonna.
Yeah, but that's because yeah. And it was amazing. And obviously Jiri has got that sort of that feel to it as well. It's a little bit off the beaten path, because everyone starts and stops at Lukla. God, there's so many place names now with all these trips. As I used to be able to fire them off, but now I'm like an old man. But brilliant. Yeah, awesome. I mean, so there's obviously loads more we can talk about, but we should perhaps touch on some of the others as well. And I did see a question about help me out, and the volcanoes trip in Ecuador, the Ring of Fire. Yeah. But
not about how is your Ring of Fire, but what is the Ring of Fire trip?
Yeah, what is the Ring of Fire? So let's have it. Okay, so Darren Borche, how's it going, Darren?
Oh, hey, Darren. Darren, I had a little text off Darren. Yeah, great to hear from you, Darren.
Nice, Daz. How much climbing is involved with the Ring of Fire trip? Loads. That's not joking around. There is loads of climbing to do on the Ring of Fire trip. It's hell of a trip.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's because I know Darren messaged me, and this, I think this sparks probably some of the questions we were talking about, Dave, is, what level of experience you maybe need for that. Certainly because I know obviously where Darren's question's coming from is, how much climbing's involved. I know Darren's used crampons and things before. And to anyone looking at the Ring of Fire, it probably is a step up. I'd probably say it's on par with something like Island Peak. So although you can, again, all these trips you can go and, because we do the kind of on the trip training. So for instance, if you haven't been on crampons before, if you've never been on sort of fixed ropes, where you're tethered to other members of your team, with a harness. If you haven't done that before, then the guys do to kind of walk you through that before you start. But, like anything in life, the more experience you've got on it, it's going to help because you don't have to think about it, especially crampons and using an ice axe. It's not technical, but you are on, mixed terrain, which will be on glaciers, which will be on snow from time to time, especially on Chimborazo and Cotopaxi, because you're so high and the glaciers, I mean, it has changed a lot. I know, obviously, from the research we've done, we try to sort of pick some routes that were, fun, but good for acclimatization, but also safe as well. So they're not the most challenging routes for that particular reason. We don't want to make it too challenging. But Dave, I know that, so that question essentially yeah, it is. You are on. There is some climbing involved, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And also Chimborazo is over 6,000 meters. So
Yeah.
it's 6,200 and change. And before that you've got Cotopaxi, which is it's pretty much near Kili, 5,800
Yeah.
and some change. And then the other one, I've got it here somewhere, but I can't find it. I think it's called Cayambe, but that's about
That's it.
5,700 as well. So in a case, so it's a 13-day itinerary with a spare day. So it's probably about 10 days of actual climbing. In that 10 days, you'll do a 6,000 meter peak, 2 nearly 6,000 meter peaks, and you'll acclimatize on another one, which goes up to about 5.5. So it is, it's pretty intense, that one. Yeah. It's like I said, it's a dark horse. It seems to fly under the radar a little bit, the Ring of Fire trip, but it is one of those that I think all of our trips, the reason when we talk about like ever tracking them and why we don't just sort of fire them out one by one is because we have to make sure that the itinerary, the skill set is achievable by everybody. So that means,
exactly.
how many days, this trip can be done in 11 days. We've upped it to 13. Those 2 days can make a huge difference. And so if someone comes up and they want to book on and they've not done any altitude experience or mountain climbing, yes, it's possible. I definitely recommend some training, maybe, get some winter skills training in and stuff like that, but it's doable. But probably more, more enjoyable for those people that have maybe, they've perhaps done Kilimanjaro, and
or done base
hike
camp,
and done base
or
camp.
something,
And yeah, exactly. But, like I said, there's no, it's not black or white. You can, it's you can get as much out of it as you want to put into it, really. But yeah, love that trip. Really want to do that. And also it's awesome just to go to Ecuador and travel around South America and see all these amazing places and go to the lakes and the glaciers that are down there. It's stunning.
Yeah, exactly, Dave. I said, I thought we'd tackle a couple of questions because you've had obviously a few come through.
Nice.
Just a couple, Kirsten Franklin, not a question, but big thanks to Fee and Lauren. Helped me book my next trip, doing EBC in May. Yeah, Kirsten, great to see you book in. Shona, travel holiday. What's that? Shona, it's something that, it's not normal, but trust me, I hate sitting down. Since I've been here, I need to get to the mountains. So there's mountains here. I'm going there tomorrow. Just shout out. I'm just going through. Leah's asking, Dave, how's the knee? Dave, it's always good to hear about your knee.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, the ongoing knee saga. So we filmed a little video for myself yesterday. Andy's still shouting at me because I haven't put them up, but I've got about 10 videos now, just marking my. I will put them out, but I want the story to be a little bit more finished. Yeah, well, not finished, but a little bit more developed, shall we say? But no, the knee's going great. I had physio yesterday, still ahead of schedule, or on schedule, pretty much. Right now, I'm trying to get my knee straight. That's the big thing for me. I got to get my knee straight. As soon as I can get it straight, then I'm pretty much on the road to recovery, and I'll get my quads firing. Because my knee won't go dead straight. The quad muscles around just above your knee, they're getting smaller and weaker. So that's fun. but actually, I'm about 10 degrees off straight, and the last time I was about 13 degrees. So it's it's coming down. It's coming down. I might just put it there and get Andy just to jump on it or something. Give it the people's elbow hand or something, see what happens.
Jesus, mate, Jesus. I'm not sure. But yeah. Tupcal's still on the horizon, isn't it? Excuse me. I know you're working towards Tupcal in November, right? That's the chat.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So, well, I will do it, whether it's straight or not. But it will be straight. Yeah. I mean, I say that, but no, it's all about the prep and the work and stuff like that. I think, fitness wise, I could probably go and do Tupcal tomorrow, but the knee obviously is going to be a factor. And every time I go for a walk, that's about 2-3 hours, I start to get some issues. So it's about just strengthening the muscles around the leg now to compensate for that. But it's ongoing. It's ongoing. Who knew that breaking a cruciate ligament would be such a faff? If I'd broke my leg that day on the mountain, I'd be well on my way to a full recovery by now. But
yeah, but you've been
life.
through the mill. But that's what happens when you bike instead of trekking, Dave. I did tell you.
Yeah, well, mate, I like trekking, and granted, I've never hurt myself trekking. But I gotta. I like the speed and danger of the biking, but I'm perhaps
Never
going to
mind,
just do
Dave.
so. I might put a basket on the front of my mountain bike now and just do little runs like that,
Nothing wrong with that, mate. Nothing wrong. Paul Gavin Battersby. Paul, great to see you on the live, mate. Do you wear crampers on the icy mountain paths? Yeah, I think you're obviously about crampons, yeah? So, yeah, on some of the trips that we do, depends on severity of it. So I know we talked a little bit about Ring of Fire, that trek. And yeah, certainly there's parts there where you will 100% need crampons. Toubkal in winter, certainly, because of the terrain. Sometimes in the Everest region, so you've got Island Peak, 100% you'll be using crampons on there. Very, very, very rarely do you use them on the high passes in the Everest region. So sometimes like Gokyo Valley, you got over Chola Pass, Kongmela Pass, even Renjola Pass. So these are the passes in the Everest region. Very, very rarely do you need them there, and you don't need to take any. The guys have got you covered there. So if it is that bad, and this changes week on week and season on season, we'll know beforehand, and we'll be able to hide them locally. The guys will just get them for you. So it's covered in that bit essentially. But yeah, when it comes to crampons, obviously think about the type of boot then you need to use. So if you are climbing Island Peak, Mera Peak, if you are going on like Mount Elbrus, then you need a boot that's crampon compatible. So do factor that into any equipment choices as well. Just looking what questions. Is there a reason? Sorry, this is Shona. No Toubkal weekend dates between Feb and June. So Shona, when it comes to Toubkal, it's definitely similar to other trips. I mean, you can do them any time of the year, but we chose the ones that are kind of, I'd say, probably the better times of year to trek. So you can do it in the kind of summer. So anything, our British summer, say those dates, quite good to go over. Obviously, it's a bit warmer. Then you've got the winter. The kind of gaps historically, and just from all the research we did and gone out there, it just seems that it's for some reason not a good time to trek. I mean, it could be some weather, wind is a factor there. So yeah, we always like to sort of kind of focus the two different seasons there, Dave. I know when we were looking at Toubkal, weren't we? We were looking at the different sort of times you can go, and then obviously the popular times we obviously go with them due to weather and popularity.
Yeah, exactly. And we try with Toubkal, you've kind of got to get a mix of. You don't want it to be scorchio, or like really kind of poor weather. So yeah, we focused in on sort of the key dates, and we manage them now just based on the popularity of Toubkal. Obviously, if it blows up like Everest Base Camp, we'll probably spread those dates a little bit more into those sort of they're not like not ideal, they're just not the primo trekking dates. But yeah, that's exactly why. Yeah, we all of the trips on our website, so we get this question quite a lot, like when is the best time to go? And we've kind of done all that for you. All the dates on the website are pretty much, we start off with the best times to go on all of those trips. And then there's obviously, little differences like, do you want to go in winter or do you want to go in summer? Because it is a different flavor of trip. If you want to go to summit of Toubkal without crampons and experience some nice warm weather, at least not on the summit but on the way up, then yeah, 100% summer's for you.
Nice.
Andy, I know he's already made up his mind.
So we got winter all the way.
Yeah, exactly. So Chris Ward, has any idea when trips to Kili will restart? So I'll be honest, Chris, at the moment we don't have much of an idea. The reason is we know Africa's very far behind in its vaccination program and also dealing with COVID. They didn't sort of jump on it right at the beginning like a lot of other countries did. So that's kind of set them behind a little bit now. Also, I think uptake with the vaccine, they have vaccines now, but I think the uptake is quite slow. However, we do know that that's broadly speaking across Africa. We do know that Tanzania now is having a very big push towards dealing with this because obviously tourism, and particularly tourism to Kilimanjaro, is their bread and butter. So we do know that it's not going to be a long, long time before it's reopened again.
Yeah.
If I had a crystal ball, would it tell me, would I be surprised if Kili happened this year? Maybe. But I'm very confident about next year. Very confident about next year. I think that next year it will definitely happen. That's not to say that it won't happen this year. Again, you can see the situation that we're all in. Maybe will it, won't it? We don't know at the moment. But like I said, I'm very confident that it will pick up in the near future.
Yeah, it's a good question because things are starting to open up now. I mean, obviously I'm abroad at the moment, so there are, especially in Europe, there are places where we're now allowed to go from a UK perspective. Yeah, when it comes to Tanzania, Nepal, certainly some countries in South America, when it being on the red list, obviously it's very challenging from us, and some of those countries already have restrictions as well. So yeah, it's as soon as we're allowed to, I get back there. And I can't believe that we're sitting here in August, mid-August essentially, 2021. And after what happened in March last year, it's pretty crazy. But we're ready and waiting. I mean, the super positive thing, especially around Africa, is that next week we got our first trip in Morocco. So we did have a lot of people booked on. I think
18, I think.
we had 18 going on across that weekend, but we'll have reduced to 2. But we still wanted to run it because those 2 people really wanted to go on that particular day, and they were allowed to. And that'll be our first trip ran since last March. So we can't wait to get on top of that summit and hoist the Evertrek flag. And it's going to be a little bit emotional, I think, because it's been such a challenging time since then. I mean, we're a travel company. We haven't been able to travel. That's one of the reasons why we started this, is to try and at least fill that gap and try and answer and be there for you guys really until we are allowed to go. Obviously, don't worry, these Tuesday tuners aren't going anywhere. But the point is that it's not a million miles away now. Same goes with Nepal. We're hoping by the end of the autumn maybe we'll be able to run some trips.
Yeah.
Where we're quite confident, although we like to plan ahead a little bit, and we're already into the 10th of August, so September is when the season generally starts. So we are going to be getting in touch with September to kind of push them to reschedule, unfortunately. But at the moment, October, November in Nepal still going ahead, and we're still confident with that. But that's the same with all the countries. We will communicate to everyone who's going on those trips exactly what those plans are. But yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? We're still answering these questions about when we'll be able to go on trips, Dave.
I know.
It's mad, isn't it?
I remember in February 2020, and we thought, we'll be all right by May. And who knew? But I think we're very lucky and very fortunate in that we've got this community, and not just this community, but the wider community of Evertrekkers as well that have stuck with us, and we're still growing, making trips, producing trips, improving the existing trips. So I do know that as soon as the firing gun goes off, we'll be, it's going to be like we never stopped, to be honest with you. We'll just be straight away going. But yeah, I can't wait to get out as well. I mean, could have done without breaking my knee, but that's okay.
You should have done it at the beginning of lockdown, mate.
Right, mate. If I'd have done it at the beginning, if I'd have broke my knee in March 2020, it'd have been perfect. I'd have had all that time to rehab where I can't do anything, and now when it's opening up, I'd be fine. But obviously, I don't do that. I wait for the first day out of lockdown, go outside, ride my bike, break my knee, go back into lockdown, my own personal lockdown.
Jesus, Dave.
Yeah, it's all pants.
Good question, Karen Smith. How cold does it get on K2? So yeah, and in terms of K2 and the trek, on the way to K2 base camp, can get quite extreme on K2 itself, especially during winter. But yeah, in terms of the dates that we're looking to run that trip, so starting next year, it does get similar to the Everest region. Can get down to sort of -10, minus 12 sometimes. So in terms of the equipment that we recommended, if you download the K2 base camp guide, there's a little bit of equipment in there, and you'll see it has a 4-season sleeping bag, because there's no huts. You'll be camping the whole way. So you want to make sure you've got warm gear, just in case, as soon as the sun goes down, that mercury is going to drop. So yeah, you want to make sure you've got suitable down jackets, suitable base layers, warm gloves. You're talking about planning for cold weather here. So if you're planning for sort of -10, even going down to -15, because you can always sort of take layers off, can't you? Especially in the tent. And if you're in a tent, and most people actually wear stuff to bed, don't they? Some people like just to wear their pants, and that's cool. But some people just wear their trekking gear and get up, and then it's like their suit, so they'll wear it for a day or two. Dave, I know you're a big fan of that.
Mate, yeah, literally just take the boots off. If it's really cold, I'll put my boots in the bottom of my sleeping bag. Not very comfortable, but at least they're warm. Nothing worse than waking up in the tent and putting frozen boots on. That just saps your energy right there. But yeah, like if I know it's going to be really cold in the night and really cold in the morning, why bother getting out of dirty clothes to get back into dirty clothes? I'll just keep them on. You know.
I bet they're
So
going to be colourful at the end, though, aren't they? That first
yeah,
shower that you have, it's like
yeah. I mean,
the Ganges River just flowing out, right?
mate, I remember our trip where we got back from. We were on last day of EBC trip, me and you,
Yeah.
and the heavens opened and we had that monsoon.
Oh,
I was so drenched. When I got
brilliant.
into the room, I just turned the hot water on and just stood there in my clothes. And I'll be honest, it was not a pretty sight. Like it was just black. But yeah, great days. But anyway, that's adventure travel for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is it, especially when you're on somewhere like K2 base camp, or even in the Everest region. You know, you're going to get dirty. You're going to get smelly. Some of those tea houses, they have a certain odor, don't they, Dave?
They do, yeah. They have a certain aroma. You know, it's like Odella trekking. But you know, but you won't stand above the crowd because everyone else is largely on the same boat.
You blend
you
in.
know, yeah. So the ambient smell in the room is sort of, it meets your level and stays there. So everyone will be like, "Oh, can you smell something?" And you'll be like, "Yeah, is it you? Is it me? I don't know." You know, it's fine. But again, well, wet wipes can be your best friends. You can get these disposable wet wipes and stuff like that. I tend to have a dry sack that I'll throw all them in. You know, that becomes the sack of death, and then I'll throw them away when I get back to Kathmandu. But yeah, you know, all sorts of crap goes in there. But yeah,
so Dave,
go on.
I know we covered. So we've done K2 base camp. We talked a lot about obviously the Ring of Fire trip. Let's talk about Elbrus a little bit now, because again, quite a lot of people are asking sort of what experience they need for Elbrus. You know, the highest peak in Europe. And you know, is it something you can just book and do, or do you recommend doing like a proper trek first before going to Elbrus? I mean, what would your approach be?
So yeah, it's one of them where, so Elbrus is, when I go into Elbrus, I'm glad that I've got some experience with altitude, you know, because there's always a little bit more, I don't know whether I want to say pressure, but when you go into EBC or K2 base camp, and it's like it's more of a journey than it is a climb, you know. And when you go in on a mountain, obviously you get what, you know, they refer to as summit fever. You know, it's all about the summit. You want to get to the summit. So obviously can put some pressure on people. And I think having some experience obviously just allays some of that, you know, and makes you a little bit more calmer and a little bit more sort of, you just go there and enjoy the climb. Having said that, it again is one of those where it's, you know, it's a little bit smaller than Kili. Lots of people go to Kili and their first taste of altitude is at Kilimanjaro. Done properly, that can be successful, and I think it's the same with Elbrus. Elbrus is a slightly different flavor, given that it's, you know, it is glaciated, so you are going to need sort of, you know, more traditional climbing equipment and stuff like that to get to the summit. But I would say it can be done. If you are going to book on and say Elbrus is your dream, you want to do Elbrus, and you've not done anything else at altitude, I would definitely say go and do some winter mountaineering training. Our guy Steve up in North Wales is really good at that, and he can teach you ice axe, crampons, rope techniques, walking on snowpack, how to walk in crampons and cut steps. All of this stuff can be really useful to know. And we always say knowledge dispels fear, right? So if you know a little bit before you go, you're less fearsome, less anxious, and you can just, your mindset's in the right place. I know Andy is big on the mindset because, you know, I've learned a lot from Andy, and we've seen the difference it can have. You know, we've seen really, really strong people effectively quit on, you know, EBC, you know, when they didn't have to, and there was so much more that they could have done. And then we've seen other people who battle on, and then the idea of quitting doesn't come into their mind, and they stay positive and they think about the journey and why they started. And I think a lot of that can come into play on Elbrus. And if you couple that with a little bit of training, a little bit of fitness, you're going to have all the tools you need to get to the top. But it's not one that I would take on sort of, you know, roll off the sofa and and go there, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. No, Dave, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, Elbrus, it's certainly, whatever experience you've got is going to help you. Altitude, if you've not been to altitude before, you know, that's something obviously you're going to be thinking about. You know, if you've not been on snow before, you know, snow with crampons, climbing on, you know, maybe a steeper gradient on snow. If you haven't done that before, that's something you got to think about. So yeah, all these things, the more experience you have, it's going to pay dividends on the mountain. And you know, certainly when it comes to, you know, weather, whether you're having bad weather, because sometimes on Elbrus it's notorious for having, for storms to come in and bad weather to happen because of the location where it is. So yeah, and I think I had a question there. I think can we talk about the weather, please, from Jerome?
It's okay.
Yeah,
Quite sunny.
is he talking about the UK bit? Well, it's lovely out here, but on Elbrus, the weather can be quite brutal. Certainly, what makes it a challenging mountain, obviously because of its height as well. So yeah, something that we've we built in because we got an extra day there. We want to make that summit. Obviously, safety first, and that goes on whether you're on Island Peak, Mera Peak, whether you're on Everest Base Camp, wherever we are. You have to put safety first, and we've had to turn around people on Island Peak, because even though we're the highest team on the mountain, which I think we were a couple of years ago, it was just as bad visibility, and when you can't tell the difference between the floor and the sky, it's time to go down.
Yeah, exactly.
And that goes on any mountain. If the weather hits, we have to put that to the equation. But that's part of the challenge, isn't it? That's why they're there. That's why not everyone climbs them, because they're hard. But when you do,
James Ashley on that trip, and
yeah, James was, he was on that Island Peak trip.
Yeah,
and I know, some great Evertrekkers on that trip, and I know they were, disappointed, but also because there were 8 teams on that mountain on that day. Our team got the highest, which was a good thing anyway. Not far from the summit, but when you're on a summit ridge and you can't tell, the difference between the floor and the sky, that's not safe. Doesn't matter how good your goggles are. Doesn't matter how much what's the word, motivation you want to get there. It's there's no point risking your life in that situation.
Well, exactly.
That life comes first.
And if you're still on your way up and you're questioning whether it's safe and you can't see anything, the danger is you'll probably reach the summit if you carried on. But anyone that's done any mountain knows how fatigued you are on the way down. You have that adrenaline dump at the top, and everything's like awesome, and you suddenly have this like punch in the air moment, and then you turn around and start down, and you'll be fine then. And then maybe an hour into your descent, and it is a long ascent. Sometimes it can be 7 hours. That fatigue sets in, and you start to maybe you're really tired. You might not have slept for 30 hours, so your eyes start closing. And it's times like that when, like Andy was saying, if the weather's really bad, you really don't want to be doing it. I remember, and your water might freeze. There's just loads of little factors, each one of them always being thought about all the time. And having a little bit of experience obviously just makes those things more manageable. But I can't wait for Elbrus. One cool thing about Elbrus is you've got the Gabarashi station, I think it's called, which is like this whole ski station.
Gabisi station. Yeah, I know.
Gabisi or anyway. I'm not sure on the pronunciation. There's so many places. I'm rubbish today with my names. But so we acclimatise in the traditional method. So first of all, on Mount Cheget, and then we'll go to Elbrus and we do the traditional up, down, up, down. But one of the cool points is that we can walk up to this station, walk back down, and then the next day we can get the ski lift back up and start from there and then go up again.
It's quite handy.
Yeah, exactly.
Andy Merchant booked Elbrus this morning. Great, Andy. Great to have you on, mate, in 2023. Obviously got lots of time to prepare, but super excited. Thanks for booking on, and look forward to having you with us.
Awesome.
Any more questions then, guys? We've got any,
Jerome said, isn't that what happened to Sandy Irvine? Well, I read quite a lot of books about Mallory and Irvine. Probably did fall in bad weather. I used to think they didn't reach the summit. Now I think they did. So what happened was I thought that once they got up there, the second step would be too difficult for them to climb using the tools at the time. But Conrad Anker went there and climbed the second step, without the ladders and everything, using, just traditional climbing techniques, and did it. So I think, they did that, and then on the way down, that's what happened.
I think there's they'll. Could be one of those things that we'll never really know unless they find the camera. They've obviously found Mallory's body. They haven't found Sandy Irvine's body. But it's one of those things that maybe we'll never know. But I kind of, there's a little bit of You know, that kind of story, isn't it? Heroic kind of, you know, would they have gone for the summit? And then, as Dave said, then, you know, they had that high and on the way down got caught in bad weather. It's highly likely, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those kind of mythological stories that we'll always be thinking about because, you know, did they? I mean, you know, Tenzin Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary will always have the first summit because that was the first successful of getting up and down. But wouldn't it be cool if George Mallory and Sandy Irving did it? That'd be
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows, right?
I mean, the history of Everest is amazing. There was one guy,
Yeah,
and I think Tenzing had a little bit of interactions with him at some point. I can't remember the name of the book where I read this, but if I find it, I'll share it. Where he crashed a plane. You know, he flew a plane and then like crashed it on his way to base camp. I think it was the north side, and then so he stole a plane, I think, crashed it there deliberately, and then attempted to climb. And I don't think he made it either. But yeah, there's some really crazy stories about, you know, the first attempts at Everest and stuff like that. Yeah, it's amazing. Let's have a quick look now.
It's part of the draw, isn't it? It's part of. I mean, it was definitely one of the reasons I went years ago. It was, you know, because of the history and the pull of Everest. I know a lot of you on here of Evertrekkers have been to Everest with us, and you know, looking at the other adventures. I know we talked about a few today, but yeah, can't wait to have you with us and sharing that history. You know.
Yeah. So Ramona's saying
Dave, I know the signal's going up and down. I don't know what it's coming like for you.
No, yeah. So for me, it's a little bit like, I think you're delayed. So I think I'm waiting for an opening, but I apologize if we're talking at the same time, everybody. But it's quite difficult to juggle it. As you know, with us and our tech, we only choose to do these lives where we have poor Wi-Fi. But yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not that amazing over here in Spain. Tell you.
Yeah. So Ramona's saying when she used to suffer from extreme insomnia, used to Google Everest bodies. Always, you know, it's always a good way to go to sleep, I guess. Green Boots. Well, Green Boots is actually, he's not in the cave anymore. They moved him off the trail.
Buried him on the mountain, essentially, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think what happened to David Sharp up there when they went up there to move David Sharp's body, I think they moved Green Boots there as well. I think Indian climber, I believe. I forget his name. But yeah, no, it is fascinating. There's quite a lot of stories on there about Francis Arcentiev, who was climbing Everest with her husband, and I think they both died on the mountain, or at least I know she definitely did, because she just sat down and then he went back up to get her, and I think he wasn't seen again, or either he went back up and came back down without her. I forget what happened to him, but I know she died, and she's really quite scary because, well, not scary, but quite haunting, I guess, because she sat up and her hair was blowing in the wind for years after, I think. So yeah, fascinating, but a bit grim. Should we move on to lighter topics?
Yeah, I know. But you know, I know we've kind of gone on to the dark topics. The thing is, I'm just going through all the comments now. We're all interested, aren't we? I know it's a dark topic, and you know, but I think as Andy said there, really good. You know, in terms of it's all part of the journey. Yeah, I do like that quote, mate. It's on the wall in the office. It's certainly it is, and you know, it's cool, isn't it? Just thinking about their journeys. Sometimes just to be privileged to actually see and be part of their journey. I know, you know, a lot of people have died on Everest and on these mountains. You know, K2. You go to K2 base camp. A lot of people have died on K2. Only weeks ago, people died on K2. It's a dangerous mountain, but that's part of the draw of these places. And I know we can kind of touch on that by going there, even to K2 base camp, to Everest base camp. You know, I know we do climb the other peaks. You know, especially if you're talking about Aconcagua, you know, which is a serious peak. You know, proper serious. You're over 7,000 meters. You know, it's dangerous, but it's, you know, we always talk about that managed danger. And if we can manage it, you know, without, you know, you could be unlucky, you know, things can happen. We all know that. You could do that stepping out your front door. But if you can manage it as best you can, which, you know we've got some vastly experienced guides across all of our trips, you know, we wouldn't have anything less. We know that those people know what they're doing. And that's why, you know, we have people who go there, come back and have an awesome time.
Exactly.
Well, you know, usually anyway. Hopefully soon again.
I mean, that's the thing. And also, we go to these places in the same vein and for the same reasons as those people that climb Everest. You know, it's hard to articulate in words, really. It's one of those things where almost if you have to ask, you shouldn't go. You know, like, why would someone want to do this? I mean, obviously because it's there. but also but because it's you can't explain it.
Nice,
I mean,
Dave,
I think far greater philosophers and minds than mine have tried to answer why men are drawn to the mountains, and I probably couldn't even do it any justice. I would just stick with, because it's awesome. Literally, in the truest sense of the
certainly is,
word,
mate.
awesome.
Certainly is. Dave, I'm just going through. Obviously, any questions, guys, do drop them in. Got another sort of 5-10 minutes, so just to cover off a couple of things. Gavin, though, has asked a good question just around, okay, book for Killy. Awesome, Gavin. Great to see you on. Last week in October for next year, 2022. What is the weather like? What is the weather to be expected? Okay, yeah, expected to assume this is coming to the end of the season. So, yeah, just with a question there. With the weather, yes, certainly. So, we do have trips that essentially border because Killy, you can climb any time of the year, but it does have a rainy season there, so it can get quite a bit of rain. Basically, when you're at the end of March or the end of October, you can get some rain, unfortunately. So yeah, with that, but that being said, the higher you go, you're above the clouds. Give it maybe the first few days, you might be susceptible to that weather, but once you're above, I'd say Barranco Wall, very unlikely to rain. It can do. But as you get closer to the summit, then it's pretty good visibility at that time of the year. Again, you never know. I mean, we went there in February, going into March. I think we summited on 28th of February, I think it was, last year, and we had rain the first couple of days, and then on the summit day, beautiful sunrise, one of the most amazing things you'll see. Quickly followed by zero visibility. I want to tell you,
inside of a ping pong ball. Happen.
Yeah. But all part of the journey, right? All part of the journey. One question, Dave. I want to make sure this is answered. Neil, interested in climbing either Mera Peak or Island Peak next April. Not sure which one to pick. Okay. Yeah. I mean, Dave, did you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, sure. Well, it depends on sort of what sort of flavor of trip you're after. I keep saying flavor this, flavor that. I need to move away from it. But my point is that so they're obviously they're both 6,000 meter peaks. Mera Peak is known as the highest trekking peak, 6,500 something meters, and then Island Peak is probably the most popular trekking peak. It's used to acclimatize for Everest. It's in the Everest region, so it's on the trail that everyone likes to go on. So if you want to go to Everest Base Camp, and you want to go up Kalapata, and you want to go to Gokyo, and you want to do all of these awesome things as well as climbing Island Peak, then Ultimate Island Peak is the trip for you. So you'll be on the traditional Everest trail. You'll go over some high passes. You'll go to Gokyo Ri, Chola, Kongmela, I think, as well, and you'll go to visit Gokyo Lake. You'll go to Everest Base Camp, and then you'll come down and summit Island Peak. It's really good for acclimatization. There's pretty much not, it's like if I had to say what is the most conclusive Everest trip that we do, that's probably the one at the moment. Yeah. However, if you wanted to go to a slightly different area, still technically within the Everest region, but when you get to Lukla, you go left or you go right. And you'll go right, and you'll go off to Mera, and you'll summit Mera. The reason why you'd want to do Mera, less ladder crossings. So, it's more of a traditional trekking peak in terms of its sort of terrain. You don't have to cross the ladders, but it is the highest. So 6,500 meters, a serious climb. And yeah, so that's pretty much the snapshot difference between the two. And it's about whichever one you'd go for. Personally, I would say if it's going to be your first 6,000 meter peak in the Himalaya, I would probably do Ultimate Island Peak, because you'll get to do ladder crossings, which is cool and fun, and you'll get to go to all those other places in the Himalaya. However, if you want to get the highest, Mera.
Yeah. No, it's a really good question, and it is tough. And why not do both? Go on, do an Ultimate Island Peak, see how you get on. If you want to go higher, then do Mera maybe a couple of years after.
Yeah.
And I know there's a few questions. I think Shona's put on, obviously can't decide what trips you want to do after the 3 peaks, 3 passes. Don't forget, if you do want to book in, because I know if you've been part of the last couple of weeks, we ran a little competition, and there's been quite a lot of discounts off the back of that. Obviously, if you want to book in, I think it's 11:30 tonight. So just a reminder to everyone about that. If you are booking onto a trip, which for £100 today, you can do that for 11:30 tonight. But if you do book onto a trip, and then you kind of change your mind a little bit, because I know we've got a vast array of trips, and I know that I know what it's like. It can be quite large. Which one do I do? You know, and I think sometimes that takes a bit longer than 2 weeks, doesn't it? So if you do want to book onto a trip, don't forget, you know, we are super flexible. If you want to book onto, say, K2 Base Camp, or even if you wanted to go back to Nepal and say do Island Peak, you know, you can change that anytime if you feel okay. Actually, I want to go the Ring of Fire trip instead. So can I move to that? You can do that at any time. So if you want to lock that in today, then you know, obviously take the opportunity and go for it. No worries if not, but just wanted to remind you guys so you don't kind of think that once you book a trip, that's the only trip you're ever allowed to do. Like, we're super flexible with all the things that we, you know, when it comes to payments, to dates, to trip changes, all that stuff. You know, we were before COVID, even more so now. We kind of more verbal about it because, you know, we want people to know that we're flexible. Yeah, so I thought that I might drop that in before we dash, because Dave, coming forward to an hour now, it's flown by.
I know, mate. Yeah, it's good. I mean, you got to get to the pool.
No pool for me today. I get bored sitting next to the pool. Yeah, probably go for a walk. But no, it's been great today, isn't it? It's yeah, I know it's a bit weird because we're switched around, but I hope it's been a little bit of value for you today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. You know, any questions at all, guys, do drop us, you know, a message, info@evertrek.co.uk. You know, if you're on Facebook, obviously we can, you know, drop us a little Facebook message. If you're on the website, use a little chat bot on the website. We get back to you there. But Dave, yeah, have you got any final thoughts about these trips then, or?
Yeah, I would say it's not a matter of which one should you go on. It's a matter of which order should you do them all in. Yeah, I would say, yeah, start. The most important thing, I think, is it's always the hardest question that we have to ask is when someone says, like that Mera Island, which trip should I go on, Dave? Which one's right for me? It's always hard because there's an element of the personal in there as well. I would say no matter what trip you go on, if it's your first one, it's probably going to start a whole world of adventure. I mean, when I first went to Everest Base Camp, I was a manager for a team of 10 in an insurance company. That was it. That was my career.
What do you know, Dave?
Yeah, exactly. So literally, that was my life. That was my trajectory, and that was probably going to be me until I retired. And then I do credit going to Everest Base Camp with snapping me out of that, realizing there's more outside my front door, and now I'm here doing something completely different. And I know that that's the effect it can have on people. So without being too grandiose, just book whatever trip. Just go onto the website, pick one, because I guarantee it doesn't matter which one you pick, it won't be your last.
Yeah, exactly, Dave. Awesome, mate. Okay, we'll leave it there. Great words. Yeah, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, no worries. And just before we go, Maindel Bhutans, are we live yet? Stay hydrated.
Bingo.
Right.
Yeah.
All the best,
bingo.
Guys.
Cheers, Dave.
See you in a bit. I've got to stop for something. It's me.
Now it's on you, mate. Yeah, not me.
Yeah.